oldest sister sent me and my other sister a text the other day, and it was a video of a preacher speaking about the end time theology of pre-tribulation. Anyone here familiar? Couple of you? Oh, yeah? Okay, well, I will explain. Christians who adhere to this theology believe that a tribulation will come upon the world, and afterward Jesus will return, usually on a white steed with a fiery sword, to reestablish his kingdom on earth, and believers will be physically raptured to heaven. This theology comes in three flavors: pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, and post-tribulation. I told you, being at Jubilee makes you fun at parties. You're learning so much. While they all agree that there will be a great reckoning on earth and Jesus will return, the difference lies in when the rapture will occur, either before the tribulation, in the midst of the tribulation, or afterward. So my sister is apparently of the pre-trib tribe, which teaches that believers, say that 3 times fast, pre-trib tribe. This tribe teaches that the believers will meet Christ in the air before the Antichrist is revealed, thus escaping the horrors of the tribulation. They will, however, be returned to God's kingdom on earth after everyone else has been severely punished for not believing correctly. Sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
Right, guess? Were they right? Rapture. Right. Right. When I watched the video, I rolled my eyes so hard, I think I injured my brain. I really do. I'm like, oh, God. This is the end time theology that I grew up with, and I wholeheartedly believed for much of my life. And it's scary. They show you videos, they show you movies where people are like raptured. Children come home and their parents are gone, and they're like, oh my God. So the kid wasn't raptured, but the parents are gone. It was right. And nobody was there, right. It causes nightmares for children. I remember they showed a video to us, and it was all about the rapture, and there was a news reporter, and a news reporter's like, people are disappearing everywhere. And then the camera drops to the ground because the cameraman was raptured. And then I went into journalism and met a lot of cameramen, and I'm like, no, none of them are going. No, I went out drinking with those guys. They're not, no. Neither the reporter nor the cameraman. They're sorry, guys, you're hanging out for the tribulation. That's just what it's going to be. But we laugh. I think it's a bunch of fictional woo-woo hooey, which oddly enough is exactly what my sisters think about what I believe. Bob? Right, it's just clothes. Yeah, you're raptured naked.
You're naked?
Right. Apparently not. There are robes waiting on you, I guess. So.
Slippers, golden slippers.
But my sisters think what I believe is crazy woo-woo crap. And it was this realization that kept me from actually responding to my sister's text. My other sister did, though. She affirmed my older sister's crazy beliefs. But in my own spiritual journey, it has led me to that line from chapter 29 of A Course in Miracles that simply states, do you prefer to be right or happy? And even a few years ago, I would have just immediately texted back something sarcastic about how ridiculous this whole tribulation theology is, and how dare you send me such junk in the first place, because I'm right and she's wrong. And that would have started a whole chain of reaction of snide texting back and forth, causing renewed feelings of separation and alienation, right? But now I know better. And I know better because I am both happy and right. And I don't say that to be arrogant, though the ego finds that sentence quite satisfying. I say it because I know that in that field of unity, out beyond our spiritual beliefs, both my sisters and I are right. and all three of us are happy because we're all the same. We're all spiritual beings having a diverse and often divergent bodily experience. And it's been my training in a course over the past few years that has led me to understand happiness. Happiness is both my birthright and it is an ongoing choice. I can squander it just as the prodigal son squandered his father's wealth, or I can choose to recognize its presence within me and live into it no matter what the circumstances are around me. So after reading this text and watching the video and rolling my eyes so hard I hemorrhaged, I chose to remain happy and to be right, because I finally understood that this life jubilance, it's all about perception. I perceive my sister's theology as insane, and I know that they believe my beliefs are just as crazy, but who's right? Well, you know what? We both are. Because everything we make up in this illusion is insane. Even this. It's all crazy. And with that knowledge, we can then all just make the choice to be happy and to be right. It doesn't mean we're to be mindless, shiny, happy people who just let everyone around us believe whatever clearly insane thing they want to believe. When our beliefs drive us to seek to use the power and authority of governments or religions or institutions to oppress and marginalize or otherwise cause further separation in this world, we must stand against it. And Jesus shows us how to do this. When he dealt with those oppressors of his day, he overturned the money changers' table because they made a mockery of truth. They sought to break our connection to God and to each other. So Jesus, he was both right and happy because he knew the truth about himself and he knew the truth about the money changers. But he had to take action to wake them up to the truth about themselves. Jesus knew that insane beliefs come from the ego when it convinces us that we can only find happiness and truth outside of ourselves in things of this world. Where the money changers in the temple had gone wrong, in Jesus' view, was to put their faith in money, in transactional exchanges that provide some illusion of happiness in the form of wealth or power or prestige, but it only deepens feelings of separation and division. So where we go wrong in our search for happiness and rightness, when we listen to that wrong voice, that's basically how it gets messed up. As a course author and teacher Greg Mackey reminds us, that still small voice within is the one that we should trust, not the one that says, no, we should trust the one that said to me, don't reply to that text. Just spend a few minutes sending love and peace to your sisters. That's the thing. And not the one that said, dear God, tell them how freaking stupid that is. You hear the difference between those two voices? As Mackey says, stubbornly clinging to a wrong position, no matter how much pain it causes us, is a virtually human phenomenon. This line is both a challenge to us to seriously question our way of seeing things and an invitation to accept a new way of seeing things that is both right and happy. So my texting back any retort to my sisters would simply result in my sisters stubbornly clinging to their position and would cause further sense of separation between us, and I would stubbornly cling to my position, and it would be war. Silence in this case is how I preserved the peace and our unity. I allowed them to have their conversation while I held them in love in my heart, refusing to belittle them, refusing to hate them, doing the only thing I could do in the moment, and that was just love them. To be right and to be happy. So they could be right and happy too. So whether somebody believes in tribulation theology or not, it doesn't change who they truly are. And if we have the ability to see beyond what we perceive as insanity of beliefs, but to see the insanity of our own beliefs, then we can finally realize our function here. It is to be shiny, happy people who throw our love around and plant it in the ground where it can take root and grow, no matter what the circumstance. Breathe deep. Page turn. My instinct to preserve and cherish my relationship with my sisters instead of texting back my disagreement with their theology is a move that science tells me will keep me happy and healthy in my mind, in my body, and my spirit in the long run. That's the finding of one of the longest longitudinal right, a longitudinal study that was the longest ever of happiness that began at Harvard University back in 1938. It tracked the lives of 268 Harvard sophomores who are now into their 80s and 90s and found this veritable cornucopia of data on what makes for a happy life. The thing that kept people the happiest throughout their lives had very little to do with their outer circumstances. Many of them made lots and lots of money. Some of them didn't. Some lived ordinary lives. And one of them, a dude named John F. Kennedy, became president. What was the number one indicator of happiness? Any guesses? No?
Keeping it simple.
No? No?
Love.
Close? No? Relationships. Connection. The men in the study, which later was expanded to include their offspring, those who were the happiest were those who formed long-term bonds with spouses, with family, with friends. It was such a strong indicator of happiness that the study's lead researcher, George Valiant, once remarked, "Happiness is love, full stop." The study's findings are a reminder of why we do our spiritual work. Because sometimes it seems that we're just navel-gazing when we go inside and we disarm our own feelings of anger and fear or violence or hatred. And we're told by those around us, especially in social and religious systems, that working outside of ourselves, going out there and doing things is the only way to change the world. But if we are working in the world from a place of fear and anger or violence or hatred, we're not making any lasting changes in the world. We're just perpetuating fear and anger or violence or hatred, even if we have the best intentions in the world. And that's why we need to understand how to be happy and right at the same time. And we can only do that when we first understand that being right, being in our right mind, means that we train ourselves how to see past the grievances our egos have with the world that makes us feel separate from each other, so we can then just behold the beauty and the innocence of everybody we meet. My sisters are beautiful people. And if I were ever truly in need and they could help me, they would be by my side. I know it. I know that they would. Our disagreements over politics or religion or the color of the sky, it's not going to mean anything in that moment of need. And that's the power of relationships. We do not do our spiritual work just for ourselves. We do this work for the world, for everyone, for our families, for our friends, for strangers, for people that we perceive as enemies. I mentioned a few sermons ago that the only form of meditation that studies found helps people feel unity with one another is the loving kindness meditation, where you are sending thoughts of peace and love and safety to yourself, and then moving outward to those that you love, those you're acquainted with, those you don't know, those you hate, and finally to everybody in the world. And this jubilance is the key to happiness. Relationships are not limited to those who are just in our physical sphere. The Holy invites us into relationship with the entire world, because everyone walking around in a physical body is an extension of the Holy, just as we are. That means we're all one, all united in that field of unity where our eternal spirits are home and they still live and move and have their being, but we become blind when we step into this ego world. And it leads us to judge one another as either right or wrong, good or evil, friend or foe, any other divisive label you can dream of. And as a Course tells us, whenever we seek for anything outside of ourselves to bring us happiness, we will fail. Heaven cannot be found where it is not, and nothing in this world is heaven. Happiness abides within. And not just within ourselves. Happiness abides within all of us, even those who seem to be the most depressed, angry, selfish, or insane among us. So the best way that you bring happiness into this world is to cultivate it within yourself in every moment. Happiness is love, full stop. And when you realize that, you get to be both right and happy. Because you will begin to see the world rightly. You will see heaven reflected back to you in the eyes of everyone you meet. That's where heaven is. It's within you. It's within me. And whether they're being kind, whether they're being rude, whether they're being interested or aloof, open or closed, if you are seeing rightly, you still see heaven in their eyes. Remember, though, we got to be vigilant. The ego is a crafty little booger. It can convince us that being right and being happy is a cause for arrogance or a chance to impose our ideas or values on others in ways that cause more division instead of bringing unity. Maybe not responding to my sister's text. Maybe in truth it's just passive-aggressive behavior. I don't know. Maybe I'm convincing myself that some manner of superiority because I'm not throwing stones. Maybe my silence could be interpreted as just as harmful as saying something. This being happy and being right, it's not easy stuff. But even this seemingly insignificant situation with my sisters, it's an invitation to reflect on whether I could be being led astray by my ego. Right now, I've chosen to remain silent. I did get a second text with a second video that I have not viewed because my brain is still recovering. And they've texted back and forth about it, and I'm just like, okay, why are you testing me? But I just took it as another invitation to send more love. Acts in this world are either love or they are a call for love. And we are all just calling for love. I don't know. I'm just sitting with it for now. But Mackey's words provide much for me to think about when he writes, we should also be careful that we don't stand up for a truly right idea in a wrong egoic way. But while we should be vigilant against the ego, we should also recognize that it is our function to stand up for what is right. And what is right is what brings unity, not division. We are to demonstrate, he says, right-mindedness through our thoughts, words, and deeds, just as Jesus did in his early life and in writing the Course. Our happiness depends on fulfilling this function. It is our calling, and a correct interpretation of this line, would you prefer to be right or happy, frees us to fulfill the function that the Holy Spirit has for us. So this is the invitation, Jubilants, to think deeply about our spiritual path. Every single one of us, everyone in this room, everyone outside of this room, everyone watching today, we all want the same thing. We all want happiness. We all want joy and peace. And we want that peace that passes all understanding. So are we willing to explore our own motivations so deeply that we're willing to be wrong egoically and still be happy? Knowing that may finally result in us both being spiritually right and eternally happy. Because we have recognized that happiness is love. Full stop. Until we can finally realize the depth of our own happiness, because it's a process. REM, those great theologians, give us this daily practice that we can do to cultivate deep, loving relationships with everyone you meet. If you read it in your lyrics, everyone around, love them. Love them. Happiness. It's in your hands, Jubilants. It's not the fake, shiny happiness of the ego, but that deep happiness that's already planted within us, just waiting for us to water it, nurture it, harvest it out into the world. So I invite you this morning and every morning, Jubilants, throw your love around. Do it wastefully, because as you sow the seeds of happiness, you will reap its bounty. And that makes the whole world say, oh yeah. 1.